What if the key to your dream life is a skill that you already possess, but you're not using it correctly? Today, I want to introduce you to Frances Nuar. Frances transformed her life completely, finding true love and shifting her career path, all by tapping into her intuition. If you're ready for a journey that promises not just dreams, but a concrete path to making them reality, Frances's story will show you the power of intuition in manifesting your own dream life. It's big. It's easy, it's groundbreaking, and most importantly, it's a journey anyone can embark on. So let's dive in.
When you're in the vibration of what you want is when you attract it. It means you're not yearning and you're not longing anymore. It's that synergy and knowing that everything that is meant for you is yours. It's knowing that everything that's meant for me is mine. So when I follow those inklings of intuition, that often can seem so basic and so obvious. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this big life-changing thing happened because I followed all these small steps. The fear that comes up is just something to be looked at, not to be feared.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We're so excited to have Frances Nuar with us today. Frances is a dear friend of mine that I have known for several years, and I'm so excited to share her with you. She is a real estate mogul. I have to say, I know she'll kind of smile at that, but it's really true. She does and lives a life that she truly loves. So the reason I wanted to share her with you today is I really believe that there are so many options available to us, and sometimes we assume that our lives are just, this is how it is. Let's take it, and you don't have to take it. So I want you to think outside the box today, get your pen and paper ready, and definitely subscribe, like the channel, and send us some comments about what you like and respond to us. So that way Frances and I can respond and chat with you too. So welcome, Frances. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I already love what you've talked about, choice and jumping in and what we can actually do with that. So thank you. Excited for this conversation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. One of the things that I admire about you so much is the fact that you really use your intuition in your life, and that you're really big about, you just manifest. I mean, when I remember things that we talked about in your life, it's, you live in Hawaii. And so you created a life where you can surf every day if you want to, right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I can actually literally see the surf from here. So that's also been something. And just touching on manifesting quickly, we all know the power of writing things down, right? And setting that intention. And you reminded me that when I moved to Hawaii 15 years ago, I literally wrote down, I want to live oceanfront. And I have lived oceanfront almost the entire time that I've lived here.
Oh my gosh, really? And
Yeah.
what made you decide, where did you grow up?
I grew up on the East Coast, which I usually just say East Coast comprehensively because it was so many different places from high school to university, where I was born, where I lived for a little bit. So all over the East Coast. And I had this dream to move to Hawaii and to learn how to surf. And what's interesting about that is that I had never surfed before. So everyone's like, well, did you know people in Hawaii? What were you thinking when I moved out there? And maybe it was young innocence or naivety. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I didn't know. But I moved here with this dream. And that is something that I want to touch on when we talk about intuition, because to me, intuition is that inner guidance and that inner voice that our rational reasoning mind so often can't make sense of because it doesn't make sense. And yet it's something that when we follow it, and I'll share some more stories with you, my move to Hawaii being one of them, but when we follow that intuition, 10 out of 10 times, it turns out better than imagined, better than we could have even anticipated. And I can speak from my own personal experience that 10 out of 10 times when I have not followed intuition, it has been a painful and a learning process and experience for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, can you share a moment with us where you realized that your intuition was really key to changing a life moment, a key life moment for you where you actually did see that? Because I love what you said about, 100% of the time when we think, we trust the unknown, and then something happens and we look back and we go, oh my God, because I just walked into the unknown, this happened. Is there a specific moment in your life where you started to listen to it and you knew?
I think for me, it's been a process and an evolving. I grew up in a childhood where voice was not encouraged, where speaking up for myself and having my own opinion and thoughts and checking in with myself and my intuition wasn't encouraged. So that has been such a huge process and learning lesson for me. And so I think one of the first times was when I moved here to Hawaii and following that nudge that made no sense in so many ways and yet did in so many ways, right? And so I have so many examples of those from over the years where it's like, oh, go talk to that person. And then from talking to that person, that led to this business venture that I could never have suspected because I had no idea. So there's just always these little inklings. And sometimes people ask, well, how do you know what intuition is? And how I define intuition, it's a feeling of knowing and a feeling of peace that comes from within. And so often, you can be in your head around making a certain decision. Or for example, I can think of a specific time I was in Italy at an event that happened because I followed all these intuitive hits. And I'm sitting at this table with all these other entrepreneurs, and it's this whole group. And I just have this inkling that I need to go talk to this gentleman over there. And I didn't know him at all, right? And we end up chatting and talking, and he tells me about this venture that he's working on. And next thing you know, 6 months down the road, I'm helping with that venture, right? And so it's like, I would never have known about it. I would never have talked to him if I didn't follow that intuitive hit. So sometimes it's a move across the world. Sometimes it's an inkling to talk to somebody. So often we think, intuition is this big, big thing. And actually, in reality, it's the little quiet voice. And so to me, getting quiet is the most essential thing for honoring and starting to listen to one's intuition, is to take that space and to notice those gentle nudges.
To notice those gentle nudges. And I think that's so important. I think we can all look back and say, oh, something I trusted my gut. People say I trusted my gut, and then this happened. But then there's this, how do we overcome sometimes this feeling to distinguish intuition between a fear, regular thoughts or fears? Because I think sometimes, even though you said we do feel a knowing and a peace when we trust our intuition, but other times I've observed personally in my life where I'm feeling like, I know I shouldn't be going out with this guy, or I know I need to change this, or I need to go and do this, but I need to start this community, which I'm starting a community, but it's like, I need to do this, but then there's resistance. And is that resistance intuition, like, don't do it, or is it fear? And how do we know the difference?
I love this question because it's something that I think comes up for all of us when we're really tapping into our intuition. And for me, what my process has been around that is the fear that comes up is just something to be looked at, not to be feared. So I used to ignore my fear, pretend it wasn't there, right? Around the same things you're talking about, right? Around my coaching, my mentorship, my leadership, my stepping into my own power and doubting and not trusting myself. And I realized, if I look at that fear, I can see what that fear is and honor that fear for what it is, while also knowing the part of me that feels called to speak up and speak out is so much larger, and I get to choose. And I think that's one of the big things you touched on in the beginning, is we get to choose all of it. So there's a part of me that can feel fear, and there's a part of me that can feel courageous. And I can look at both parts of me and see, this is the part that I want to give more energy to. And by choosing to give more energy to that part of me, it expands even more. And that's the second thing I'll say on that, in terms of, when you have this fear, how do you know if it's your intuition? Even what you just said, it's like, you knew about going out with those guys or not. Like, we've all been in that place. And it's, when I look inside and see, it's, for me, it's, is my heart expanding through this? Is my heart opening more through this? Or am I contracting? And it's such a simple practice that, sometimes we can forget to do it. But to me, that's always really helpful when I am wanting to show up with more intuition, with more authenticity and integrity. Is this opening my heart, or is this shutting down in some way?
I love that, because going back, you said is a lot of times when we have fear, we ignore it. And we say, oh, just push it down, just suck it up, buttercup, and let's just move forward. We got to do this. and it's a struggle, and it's a push, and there's resistance. And it's not, sometimes I think the intuition is not that it's not spot on, but that it's actually okay, but that we are letting our fears override. And so then we make it difficult, like you said, is because we're choosing to live in fear and to walk in survival or in struggle. And I think so much of that is this conditioning and in old patterns that some of us feel like, and I felt in the past, where it's this, life's a struggle. And so if there's no struggle, it's like there must be something wrong, because, this is too good to be true. And so I was talking to someone earlier, a woman, about this. Is like my thing of the week is about poking holes in things. It's like we always are, going like it's the mismatcher, as Tony Robbins says. Okay, so everything's great, everything must be wonderful. So what could go wrong? What could go wrong? And so, right. So we're like, okay, let me think. Okay. So let me create some chaos. So that way I feel more comfortable because this is what I'm used to. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's leaning in and just being aware, like you said, is just really looking and observing ourselves and leaning into that joy, that peace, that inner peace, and actually feeling like we deserve that inner peace too, because sometimes we don't think we deserve it. So it takes a lot of self-love, right?
Oh, 100% to everything that you just said. And I'm just laughing at this part about the chaos, like, oh, well, what can go wrong? Because I think so many of us were brought up with that mentality, right? Like this other shoe has to drop, or what's going to go wrong, or who's going to harm me or hurt me. And even if that's been programmed in, to me, freedom and choice has come from recognizing and realizing and then choosing that I get to reprogram that. Like that is not a true thought, actually, because now my thought is the better it gets, the better it gets. Everything is always working out for me, right? And so when I started to reprogram myself in this way, and we all have access to that. And at first it might seem like, well, but this, that, and we might make up these stories about why it can't be. And what I've realized is we literally get to create the life we want here in this world, right? And we get to live with whatever paradigm we want. We can say life is easy. We can say life is hard. And talking about easy and hard in terms of challenges and fears that come up, because I actually think it's a really important thing to touch on a little bit more, because it can be just easy to say, oh, she's just so positive, which I am, like very mindfully positive. And to me, an easy life is when a hard thing shows up in my life, I don't resist it. I don't push it away. I don't pretend it's not there. I don't wish it wasn't there. I used to. That was a huge thing for me to overcome, is to wish these challenges didn't show up in my life, until I realized that that is literally part of the journey and part of the process. And so for me, easy now gets to be when a challenge shows up, how I show up to it. I get to show up to it with ease. I get to show up to it knowing that I'm going to have all the support that I need to move through this. I know I get to show up to it knowing that I'm going to grow into another version of me because of this challenge, which is like, the weight, the muscle building. And so I'm going to grow into another version of me. So now it's like, all right, bring it. You have a fear. Okay, bring it. And I don't resist that anymore. And it was such a shift, as opposed to pretending or wishing or thinking I shouldn't have a certain fear or a certain challenge.
Because we're not identified by our feeling or our thoughts, right? And so many times we beat ourselves up or we judge ourselves for our thoughts, and we get to literally decide how we want to think. We can rewire. We can change that thought, like you said. Is do I want to feel fear, or think joy and excitement? And facing challenges is so true, because a lot of times it's almost, I think it's, I always used to say, stop giving me lessons. I'm done. Okay, enough lessons already. Right? Okay, enough. I think I got it. I've got it. Stop giving me the same lesson. But at the same time, is that if we can look at it almost as a game, and I'm almost gamifying it these days, is like, oh, okay, what else you got? And then don't do that, by the way, because it does happen. But I mean, it's like, it's sort of, okay, how easy can I turn this around, and how quickly? How quickly can I stay on in my highest self and not drop down? And so it's kind of what Tony Robbins talks about too, where he says, how many minutes is it going to take for you to get back on, back in peak state? You're going to sit with it for days because something bad happened, or can you turn it around quickly? And that's really the measure to me, is how can I turn it? Everybody's going to face challenges. We're all going to face these moments where we're upset about something, but it's how quickly can we turn it around?
Yeah, 100%. And the thing that I'll also add to that, that's been really transformative for me, is seeing why it's there, like actually inviting in the lesson. Because again, it's like, if there's a challenge, it's there for a reason. And when I really believe that this is in my highest good and for my highest good, then I can invite it in, knowing this is expanding me, and knowing that I'm going to come out stronger on the other side, and knowing that my highest self is a choice in every moment where I have awareness. So for example, it's not an out there when, because we all know the only thing is now. It's that when I know I want to wake up and work out, and that's what I've chosen, it's waking up and working out instead of sleeping in. And it's literally that simple. It's that me showing up as my most vibrant, radiant version of me is making the choices that are in an alignment with how I see myself as my highest version in this moment. And when I see these two options, two choices, sometimes more in front of me to say, oh, I could do this, I could sleep in, or I could get up and do this workout and feel amazing after, right? And such a simple thing, but this is life. Like, and you said it's gamified. It's like, I get this or this, and then if I do this, I up level. And if I do this, I down level, right? And
Yeah.
know that none of us will perfectly choose that higher self all the time. And that's also part of life. So it's like when I haven't achieved what I've wanted, or I haven't done yet what I've wanted, it's like, all right, I'm just still going towards it, and knowing that that journey is life. And so fully embracing that.
I love that because I've noticed that about myself. I always used to talk about this a lot when I was coaching back in the day, and is what am I doing when no one's looking?
Mm.
And today I would call that showing up for myself, as you've said, is my highest state of being. And it truly does matter, because it used to be where I would more be about, and I think so many of us do this, is that we're showing up for other people. And then we say, oh, I'll get to that later. And then we're so exhausted that then we don't accomplish or really live out and carry out those things that we really want to do. And then we miss out. And then there's this downward spiral where we feel like we're not showing up for ourselves. And then we're actually betraying our soul. We're betraying ourselves by not loving ourselves and showing up. So it's that I choose to go to the gym. I choose to wake up early, and I choose to do these things. That is showing up for self. That is showing up for as Michael Beckwith calls it, the body temple, to take care of the body temple, to take care of our physical being. And that's one way, right? And so it's even when we say, oh, I'm just going to slack off and not eat right today, or I'm not going to finish that project, it's, oh, I tell you, I'm sure you felt this too, is the times I've done that, I go, oh, it starts to spiral. And then it's almost like we atrophy a little bit. Is that we start to feel like there's a little bit of a chipping away at things. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like it's chipping away at that loving oneself and feeling really at the highest state of being.
Oh, 100%. And you just reminded me of a concept from Outwitting the Devil, right? Where it talks about momentum. And we either have a positive forward momentum or a negative momentum. And either way, momentum is something that can be really hard to shift. And that's why the awareness is so crucial, right? And so that's also something that has shifted so many things for me, where as opposed to saying I have to be perfect or else, whatever that means, it's I'm continually choosing what my best version of me is right now in this moment, right? And so to bring it back to a very physical example, the other day I did a hike that took me 2.5 hours round trip, where when I was in my peak performance state and I was running a lot, which I haven't been lately, I could run it in an hour and a half, right? So a really big difference. But I did the other day the best from where I am today. And it was that choice of today. So I could have said, oh, I can't do it because I'm not running it, as opposed to, no, I'm going to hike this. And it had an amazing time. And so I think that's also something to consider, is that we're going to show up. Our 100% is going to show up differently in different times. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I did, ate 100% perfectly clean. Because, for example, for myself, as a very easy example, I eat probably 90% clean, and I love that. And I love the 10% like chocolates and sweets and ice cream and pizza and all these fun things that I love sometimes. And if I ate them every day, I would feel horrible, right? And if I never ate them, I would feel like I was missing out. And so, to each their own, but to me, it doesn't feel like a cheat day or I'm missing. It's been consciously chosen. And so I think that is what I would just recommend to everybody. Whatever you're doing, consciously choose it in alignment with your goals, right? I don't want to have 18 abs. I'm happy with my abs where they are. And so it's all about, what do you actually want? And then making the choices that are in alignment with that. And if you're noticing that you're not showing up as that person, okay, well, how would that person show up? And what is an action? What is a choice that you can make right now to show up in that way?
In that moment. And I love that, because you said it's 100% and it varies all the time, right? I mean, I think so many times we live in the past. And I hear women all the time say, well, yeah, but I used to be this. I used to be able to do this. I used to be able to, the da 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 da. And then it is a non-starter at that point, because I've been there too. It's just that, okay, you just can't get past the past. It's so, what is it today that I can do? There are things today that I can do at 52, almost 53, that I wasn't doing 5-10 years ago. And
Mhm.
it's and my just I'm so grateful for this wisdom and for these years. And so it's looking at who is it that I can be today. I'm not getting over a little something from all my travels, and I'm like, okay, what is the best version of myself today? We were talking in the virtual green room earlier. I'm like, okay, I hope my voice holds up. And it's like, that's the best version of me. I'm still showing up as my highest self. And it's how can we do that each moment? I love what you said about that, because it's not like, let me mirror what happened yesterday or 10 years ago or a year ago. It's today, right now, in this very moment.
Oh,
I
100% to that. Yeah. And I had thought too, I was doing a lot of visualizing, right? Which I really recommend in
want to
terms of,
talk about that. Yeah, your
okay,
visualizing is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's amazing, right? And it's such an amazing modality that pro athletes and so many people use to visualize their success. And for me, visualizing is a both and. It's seeing it out there, like, oh, okay, I'm there and I'm seeing it all, and recognizing that there exists now. And so for me, that nuance is, as I have that feeling and that thought, and I bring this into my awareness right now, oh, this success and this fulfillment and this impact and this, all of these things, I actually can access all of that in the here and now. And that was something that I had heard for so long, but when things like you hear them in your head and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know it, I've heard that before, but then it hits in your body. Right. And so for me, that body shift was when I realized all of the dreams and all of the ideas and all of the things that I was given as inspiration for my life and how to live that, the same universe, the same love, the same God that gave me that inspiration is going to give me the means to get to that place, right? Whether it's through the support or the people or the this or the that, right? So there's this knowing that I'm guided to that place, and the choice is in the now to choose that vision. And so often it's when I'm doing this visualization, I have this ping of, oh, this is what to do today. This is what to do today, right? Because it's all these moments of today that get us to a there. And again, recognizing that it really is the journey, the process. We've all heard this from the Tony Robbins world. I actually just talked to a friend the other day, and he was sharing, he just achieved a big dream of his, which was to be on the front page of his, the newspaper in the UK in the business section, which he achieved. And he was saying, I put this down at a business mastery. And I was like, and how do you feel right now? Like, I wanted to get into that energy of how he felt achieving this big goal. He's like, oh, I feel so successful and so proud. And actually, it's kind of gone already. That was yesterday kind of thing. And we've all heard that, right? That it's not about the goal. And so often I've talked to friends like him who've achieved like very big things in business and in life. And those moments of reaching the goal are so fleeting. And so it's really, am I enjoying, and I know he is enjoying the process of building his company. Am I enjoying this big vision that I have in terms of retreat centers and sanctuaries and helping women really own and step into their power, and knowing that I can help be a light for them to shine on their magic, seeing this big vision and knowing it starts here, and then it starts here, and then it starts here, right? So it's all of these little pieces that add up, and knowing that every day that I feel fulfilled, every day that I feel satisfied, every day that I feel like I've really given generously, and all of the other feelings that I love and desire, and I'm inviting more of into my life, that is success. And that is the vision. And the vision is here in this moment as the vision and as the thought, and it will exist in physical reality and retreat centers when the time is right for that, right? And so all of that excites me. And that to me is the process of manifestation. It is the process of visualizing. It's knowing that it literally is already here because it's in thought form already. And so
Yeah.
then
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say, so then the steps will open, the little pieces will open, the path will open.
And that's amazing. And I want you to give us, if you don't mind sharing, a personal story about of two things. One, about how your leap from real estate and how you got into that with intuition and visualizing, and also, more importantly, I think a lot of us want to know about your true love and your relationship. As how did you manifest that, and did you use your intuition there in
Um,
visualization?
absolutely,
Tell us the
yeah.
story. Tell us the
All of
juicy
that.
story.
Okay. So for my relationship, so it was something that I dove deep into, and I'll just give a very quick backstory for anyone who might have been in my situation. I recognized that I wasn't showing up in relationships how I wanted to. how I wasn't showing up around men how I wanted to. And that for me came from trauma and pain in my past. So I dove into healing that, recognizing I wanted freedom. I wanted to be able to show up how I wanted to show up as the person that I saw myself as, but I wasn't presenting myself as. And so I dove into healing around my past, which was a pivotal part for me as the first step. And then the second step was actually learning and understanding relationship. So I also dove deep into studying that, into studying relationships and communication and love and all the things around that, none of us really learn in school. And yet it brings so much joy to our lives when we actually have that, right? So to be very specific in terms of like, what did I do to manifest my amazing partner? For me, it was all of those things, right? As kind of the base, the framework. So depending on where someone is in your community, maybe they need to set that base for themselves, and really dive into that self-love and self-healing if they have anything like that in their past. And if they already have that and they're like, all right, I'm ready. Okay. So then I got so clear on what I wanted. And I got so clear on what I wanted to bring to the relationship. And I would literally feel this partner with me and feel what it would be like to spend a day. And I wrote out what a day in the life would look like. And we have lived that day many times since then. And in fact, actually, the day before I met my partner, literally the day before, I wrote in my journal such a descriptive, like, here's what we're doing and here's how it is and here's where we are. And again, I was just following the breadcrumbs and following the magic. I have so much to say about this. I'm like, I don't even know where to begin on this because, so for example, even the day that I met him, and this is just a fun little story, I was leaving my house and I saw this beautiful rainbow, and I love rainbows. Like, I just adore beauty and I just adore the beautiful things in life. And I think they just make life so much more special. So I went to go take a photo of this rainbow. I'm like, this is amazing, right? Magical. And I looked down at my feet and there's literally a gold coin at my feet. So I always laugh and I'm like, I found my treasure that day, my gold coin at the end of the rainbow. And so, when I was going through all this list of what I wanted in a partner, it was how I wanted to feel in partnership, who I wanted to be in partnership, and just getting so much clarity on that. So I started, before I had met him, to have so much fun in dating. So I kind of transformed that because there's so many people. And again, we get what we believe we deserve, right? So if we say things like, whether it's in real estate, all the good deals are gone, whether it's with dating, all the good men are gone, that's what we get. So when I shifted to, what, dating is so fun. I get to meet other amazing people. I'm an amazing person. I get to meet other amazing people and see all their great qualities. It turned into just such a fun thing for me where I would have my list of, here's the non-negotiables of what I need in a partner and how is this person showing up as that. And if they didn't in some way around a non-negotiable, it was, thank you so much for this clarity in seeing that I really need or want this, right? So maybe it's a guy I went on a date with who didn't know how to communicate, and that's so important to me. Or a guy that isn't emotionally intelligent. That is vital to me, right? So all of these things. Anyway, I know I can take this like 100 directions, so feel free to ask more because I have so
No,
much
I
to
love
say.
this. I love this so much because I think so many times we're thinking, what's the trick? What's the key? And I know you're like me, it's just what you want, you knew what you wanted, and you weren't going to settle, and you were willing to wait, and you were willing to do the work. And it's not just here's what I want ordered up on a platter, here's what my order, please deliver. It was, who do I need to be to attract this person? What do I need to work on? And then also I love what you said. You said is, how do I want them to be and to show up? How are they showing up within those parameters of what the things that I've created, and that you were so specific and clear on what it is that you said you wanted and who you wanted. And that a day later here he showed up.
Yeah. Well, a day later after much time. And
Well,
so,
after much time, but I mean the journaling because it was a while. Yeah, I know.
yeah. Well, and that was also something that I realized. I was one day crying, right? Really sad of, why don't I have a partner yet? Like, what's wrong? What have I not figured out yet? And I was really in a place of just feeling just that sorrow of, I desire a partner. I know I'm meant to have an amazing partner. Like, where is he? And I just got this feeling, intuition, this feeling of realizing that I had done the work. and I was ready. And it was just a relaxing into that knowing of that I've done enough, like I'm ready. And that's when he showed up, right? When I stopped trying to shift anything else or fix anything else. And I think that's also a nuance that I think is so important to point out in our healing journeys and in our growth journeys is there is a defining point between healing and then growth. And if we're always healing, so I don't even say self healing anymore, right? Because there was a moment of healing that needed to happen for me because of my past and my traumas and the things that I experienced. And now it's growth. Because if I say I'm healing still, that indicates there's still something that is broken or that needs to be healed within me. There was at some point, right? And I think some of us have had these moments of trauma, abuse, whatever it is, where we have to heal from that. And then once we're healed, which is not a lifelong process, it can be short, it can be long, depending on what modality speaks to you and what you're led to and what healing you're inspired to, then you're healed. So it's like if I break my arm, I think of this analogy. It's like if I break my arm, I'm not going to walk around all the time like, oh my God, my arm is broken, or it was broken, or it's still healing. And you're like, didn't you break that 10 years ago? Like, well, but it's still healing. And I feel like sometimes that's how we are with our internal lives. You know, we're like, oh, we're still healing. Like, no, I'm in growth mode now, and it's amazing and exciting, and I get to invite in more of all the good things. So it's a recognition and an owning of the fact that you're in growth mode now, right? So if you're in healing mode, be in healing mode. It's a beautiful mode to be in. It's a kind of a more of a cocoon phase. And then when you're in growth mode, be in growth mode, you know, and be excited about that and who you get to invite in. And some of us heal within relationships. You know, so just really quickly, yeah, some of us heal within relationships. That wasn't the process for me. The process for me was healing and then stepping in. And don't get me wrong, it's another beautiful process of growth in relationship. But yeah, it can look many different ways.
I think that is so beautiful what you said about healing to growth. And I wonder, a lot of times we stay in that healing phase out of fear of actually moving forward. And there's something, that's one thing I think, is that fear or that comfort, right? Is that we're constantly working on ourselves. So we, you know, don't have to, there's something wrong. I guess there's something wrong. There's something broken. We feel like we're not enough. And I think it really is an opportunity for a lot of us to sit back and say, hey, you're actually okay just the way you are. I'm okay just the way I am. I've done a lot of work. I'm still working, but I've done a lot of work and I'm really okay. And to sit back and accept that and to see that, that's so transformative for me. I love this is just this healing to growth is going to that. Now I'm growing. I'm not healing. And it's a totally different mindset shift, right? Because then it's there. I'm enough. I'm complete. But the truth is we're all complete, even when we're healing, even when we're growing, even when we're in that state of like where we're experiencing trauma, or we're healing trauma, we still are complete deep inside.
Oh, 100%. And that's why it's I mean, I'm sure we've all heard this about manifestation. It's that when you're in the vibration of what you want is when you attract it. And what does that mean? It means you're not a yearning and you're not a longing anymore. It's just a knowing, like, yeah, my person is my person. He wants me as much as I want him, right? And whether it's in business, like the deals that want me, I want, right? It's like it goes in every direction. It's the clients who want me, I want, you know, and they're manifesting me as much as I'm manifesting them, because it's that synergy and knowing that everything that is meant for you is yours. So that was another thing that really helped me in my manifestation. It's knowing that everything that's meant for me is mine. So when I follow those inklings of intuition, that often can seem so basic and so obvious that I used to almost dismiss it like, oh, that's too easy. What if it actually is? Like, what if actually is all these small, simple, easy, sometimes scary, sometimes you see some fear behind it, but once you face the fear, that's what I've found. It's like, once I face the fear, it's like, oh, that's all it is. Okay, you can be here with me. It's okay. And then usually it just dissipates away. And then it's those small, small, small things. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this big life-changing thing happened because I followed all these small steps.
I love that. I love that. And I'm still thinking about this with manifesting and then intuition again. And I remember we both know Preston Brown, and Preston, I worked with him. We had a business together, and he used to always say, you know, I can see your intuition. Like when I say I have a gut feeling or an intuition about this, which we should do this. He said, I could literally see your brain talking yourself out of it. And so my question with that would be is how does someone ensure that they're just not following wishful thinking, but they're like generally tapping into intuitive guidance? Is like, are we going like, when in their situation, is with, and let's take that question with how you knew when with your career path in real estate, you said, this wasn't even anything I was doing before. And I got into this. How do we know that our intuition isn't just wishful thinking? And how can we genuinely tap into our intuitive guidance?
I guess the thing that comes to me is, was it wishful thinking to dream of going to the moon?
Mm.
And so it's like, I don't know what your dreams are. My dreams, sometimes they feel as big as going to the moon and sometimes they don't, but they are such a feeling of excitement in my body, of joy, of expansion in my body, right? So I do believe that our earthly vessels, these bodies that we live in, are indicators of what's going right and what's going wrong in our lives, right? Something to look more at and something to really shine a light on to see what it's about. Because in terms of intuition versus wishful thinking, intuition is such a peace and such a knowing, and wishful thinking to me is, just in this fairy tale land. And I think we know when we sit with ourselves what that difference is, because I do believe that we create our realities. So it's like, if we're sitting and we're learning about the energy and vibration that surrounds us all, and if we understand these frequencies and we're tapping more into that, and we're seeing more and more miracles show up in our lives through that, and because of that, it's like, is it actually all intuition then, that's leading and guiding us? And does wishful thinking even exist? Wishful thinking would indicate that you don't actually believe that that can be true. And then the invitation would be, well, what part of you doesn't believe it? What parts of you think it has to be hard? What parts of you think it has to be this like, painful journey process, as opposed to this just flow of life? And sometimes you're flowing down the stream and you get to a tree trunk and you got to make your way around it. And that's part of the life. And, but your intuition is still guiding you, right? And so when I think of intuition as well, I think of surrendering to love and knowing that I am being guided by love at all times and in all ways. And so when I'm feeling frustrated or feeling resistance or feeling this like an emotion that's a challenge, a fear, it's to look at that and relax back into that and to recognize, okay, that's there because I have been forgetting so often to tap into my intuition.
Yeah, I get that. That's really amazing. And the whole thing about surrendering into love, that's really special because I think that's where sometimes we just get stuck, is because we're stuck in the doing. We think, oh, well, this isn't manifesting. I've got to do something. And then we really get into that whole slippery slope of trying to force things, right?
Mhm.
It occurred to me too, a question is that, do you think everyone has intuitive abilities?
100%, 100%. And I think it's something that becomes stronger and stronger through practice. And what that practice has looked like for me is taking time for meditation, is taking time for quieting myself, is checking in with myself. Sometimes it's a hand on my heart and a hand on my stomach and really checking in. Is this true for me? Asking myself that question. And I am so passionate about people becoming in touch with their intuition, because it really is the secret to a happy and fulfilling life, right? Because all of us have these inklings, all of us have access to these downloads. And two things I'll share about this quickly. One, I realized years ago, I have been studying and learning and going to all the seminars and reading all the books, and I love it. And I'll always continue to learn and grow. And I recognize that all of this was somebody else's download, somebody else's intuition, somebody else's guidance that they're now sharing with the world in this beautiful way, right? And so I think, wow, like I'm so grateful that all of these people accessed and were true and honored their intuition and now have shared their wisdom with me. And so then it brought to me the question of, well, what is the wisdom that I am here to share, right? And so then that brought me to that journey. And then the second thing, and so I'll invite everyone to that, just to close that out. I'll invite everyone to really tap in, and it's what is wanting to be manifested through you in this world, right? Because only you can do that. Just as everything that you've ever learned is taught by somebody else from some other way and perspective, and we need all of our voices to rise up in this way. And the second thing I'll say is that your intuition is so precious to you that it is something to cultivate and to honor and to, kind of uncover and polish up. Because I recently had an experience where my intuition was telling me so strongly a no, and this person was attempting to sell her services to me by pretending that her intuition was telling her that I have to laugh, buy this package. You should, my intuition is telling me, God says that you should buy my most expensive package. Paraphrasing, but that is literally what she said. And I just had to laugh. And then I was like laughing, but also horrified, thinking there are going to be people who think that she is the voice of their intuition. And that to me is such a dangerous thing. And I have fallen prey to that in the past, where it wasn't quite so clear, so obvious, but it was somebody else telling me how things should be done, how I should do things. And because I didn't yet have that inner knowing and that check-in with myself, I did this and I did this and this failed and that failed and this failed because it wasn't meant for me. It was their way of doing things. And I think most people are well-intentioned, and it's up to us to really discern, is this true for me? So I surround myself with amazing mentors, amazing teachers, and there's always a check-in. I love that it worked for them. Is this true for me? Do I want to do it the same? Do I want to do it differently? What parts of it do I love? What parts of it do I want to change? And that is where the intuition grows.
I love that, because I think that whole part is this true for me is so important, right? Because we're, especially when you're younger, sometimes we're easily influenced by people, especially when they have strong opinions or they're very persuasive, and we admire them, or they have authority, and we think, oh, they must know, they're experts. And so we tend to go in this direction. I did that a lot. It's like, oh, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over here. Excuse me. And so then we have this, like, being torn. And Svetlana Newsom, I did, Svet, I did a course with her, and she said to me the thing about intuition. She says, when you don't follow your intuition, I said this earlier, when you don't follow your intuition, you're betraying your soul. And it's just so fascinating to me, because it hit me when I was going through a retreat at her house, and this happened to me. And I went, oh my gosh, okay. And as soon as we started aligning with that, with what's true for me, even though someone might say, oh no, this is what you should be doing. And you say, yeah, I really respect them, but is this true for me? Like, I love to use that example. Is like, is this true for me? Actually, you know what? It doesn't feel right. And you're right. As soon as we know, it's like the heart sings. It just sings. It just feels this like sense of like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I feel a sense of relief. I feel a sense of relief. And then the more, like you said, the importance of really using your intuition, not just ignoring it. It's not like some woo-woo thing, is that the more we use it, the more we learn to trust ourselves, and we learn to trust it. And that's all aligned with that self-love, because then we're showing up and we're actually doing and honoring ourselves in our highest being by saying, go this way, or step back from this, or choose this path, or make this phone call, whatever it is. And we get rewarded, and our body remembers our feeling. Our soul gets used to this and loves that feeling, and it wants more of that. And so then we start to get really excited about it, because we feel so safe there, right?
Oh, 100%. And I love what you said just now, because it's such a reminder that following your intuition is building a muscle. So if someone isn't yet used to that, it's checking in, and maybe that check-in is, where is somewhere recently that I either got a gut feeling, an instinctual hit, whatever you want to call it, that I did follow that led to something great. And where is something maybe that I didn't follow that then I wish I had, like, oh, I knew better. And I think if we take that time to reflect, we can all find examples both on both sides of that. And that is like, oh, that was the intuition, right? So that could be a first step for somebody, really like, well, how do I actually do that? It's just look in the past, and it doesn't have to be a very far past. It can be a recent past of, oh yeah, I had that inkling to do that and I did it, and look how it turned out amazing. Or I had that inkling to do it and I didn't, and I wish I had. I knew better. I knew better. And we all have those stories. So that to me would be a very first step. And then it's the noticing when that next little hit comes, to check in and say, ooh, this is intuition. Right? Because that is what I believe life is about. It's that constant choice to show up. It's that constant choice to say, oh, that's intuition. I can choose to follow that right now. And I know it's going to lead to something great and magical, even if I can't see exactly what it is yet, or I can't see the whole path yet. Or I can choose to like, just ignore that, dismiss that. And well, it hasn't worked well for me in the past. But as we get more in tune with our intuition, it becomes a choice that's easier and easier to make, because we're more and more aware. It's the awareness and then the choice. Awareness and then choice.
I love that, awareness and choice, and it becomes easier and easier. And
Yeah.
it's again, we started to rely on it. We know we go, oh yeah, there you are. I see. Okay, cool. Thanks. We
Yeah.
got this,
Yeah.
instead of the early stages of intuition. Those of you who are just starting, ladies who are just starting with intuition and thinking, I'm going to try this out, is the doubt. It's like I said, I was started to bring this up earlier, is this idea of, we get a gut feeling, we go, no, don't go out with that guy. And then you go out anyway, and you're like going, yeah, well, maybe, but he's not that bad. He's got a job, and, he looks pretty nice, and, he has a suit. So, I guess he's okay. Right. Kidding.
Okay.
And so we talk ourselves out of it, but that's when we get into that. The choice thing is so powerful, is that yes or no sometimes. And I love what Lauren, I had Lauren Zoller on my channel here too. And she says, if he's not a hell yes, he's a hell no. So sometimes that's with intuition, is if we don't always have this solid thing, is why are we trying to talk ourselves out of it or dancing around it, when we just take a risk and sometimes just say, you know what, I know that gut feel, I know that intuition, I need to just do it, and then don't talk yourself out of it right later, or have somebody else talk yourself out of it.
Oh, 100%. And I have to share a story of a time where I didn't honor my intuition years ago, because it speaks just to this. So there was a guy that I had met, and my intuition was telling me, like, don't go, danger, no, no, no. But he was saying all the right things. My friends, and this is such an important thing, right? My friends were like, oh, but he looks so great. Oh, he sounds so good. Oh, you need to give him a chance. Oh, your standards are too high. All of this bullshit. And so I ended up going on a date with him, and then finding out that he is a registered sex offender, which of course horrified me and terrified me and made me so scared, right? And I was able to, extract myself pretty quickly and easily from that, thankfully. It was such a reminder for me, and probably the last time I didn't follow my intuition, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, because it was such a strong hit that made no sense in the mind. Because from the mind, if you looked at everything, it was like, oh, but he's saying the right things. Oh, he's this and this and this. So from the mind, it would make perfect sense to go on a date with him. But the intuition, which always knows what is right for us, was a hell no. And so I let my mind in that sense, and I let my friends talk me out of what I knew. And I think that to me is such a big takeaway for anyone listening today, is that, like, we have that inner knowing and that inner wisdom, and it's always right. And when we also understand that our intuition is on our side, our intuition is here for our highest good. It's here for us to be our most vibrant, full, alive, abundant versions of ourselves. So our intuition is always leading us to that greater, higher, more enhanced version of ourselves. So knowing that, it's like, I'm not missing out by going out with this guy that, that my intuition told me not to, right? I wouldn't have this story for whoever needs to hear it. Like, your intuition knows. Don't let your girlfriends or anyone else talk you into something that your intuition knows isn't the right thing for you.
I love that you said that the intuition is always on our side. And that makes me think about the difference between intuition and ego. Is ego is protecting. It's going to keep us safe. And it's sometimes that gets in the way, and in that distinction between the ego wanting to, again, talk ourselves out of it, or say, you know what, no, or all your friends. And it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, I've got to do this, or it makes sense. So is that something that you've faced in the past, that you feel you can see that? And how do you respond to that?
Like the difference between intuition and ego?
Ego, yeah. How do you feel about that? Is that something that can we dance with both ego and intuition, and can they play nice together? Let's say that.
I think our ego has been vilified in this sense, like, oh, it's this bad part of us. As opposed to, I think ego is the part of us that's ever evolving, that we're choosing to evolve, right? It's the part of us that shows up and it says, oh, you get to choose, just yourself, or you get to choose for the greater good. And for the greater good is actually for ourselves in the biggest way, but the ego would tell us otherwise, like it's me or them. And actually it's both. And when I give to others, I receive so much, right? So I don't know that I would actually put this with intuition, because to me, they're very, very different, right? It's like the ego is that part of ourselves, like you said, that is really like looking to protect us, but from a fear-based place, whereas our intuition is here to protect us from a love-based place.
Okay. I like that. Well, so as we get ready to close, I want to see if there's anything else you want to add on about intuition. And I'd love for you to tell us a little about what you're up to and how we can support you in our community and what you're doing in the world so we can know more about you.
Well, thank you for that. I think the last thing that I would leave the audience with, and thank you everyone for listening, is that honoring your intuition is a process and an evolving and a journey, and it just gets easier and easier with time. And soon you too will see your magic. And you too will know, like, oh, wow, like we are literally all gifted this magic to bring into the world, and your unique flavor of magic is something that the world needs, right? And so intuition is the way that you access that, and it's the way that you bring that into the world.
And so we don't, by not using our intuition, we're actually really shortchanging ourselves and the world by not showing up fully.
100%. Because if you think
Yeah.
of everyone that has done something great in this world that we know about, whether it's from the light bulb to going to the moon to inventing this or that, it's somebody followed this intuitive hit that made no sense, right? Like I kind of often think about, what if I was in the room when somebody said, hey, wouldn't it be cool to go up there to the moon? Like, wait, what? Or even someone who said, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, now that we graduated from a horse and buggy to a car, like, what if that car flew through the air, right? Like, would we have sat there and be like, that is wishful thinking? That is talk, right? Because I'm not sure that I would have believed enough to dream that person's dream. And that's why it's like those people were there to bring that to the world. And we each have our own magic and our own medicine to bring to the world. And whatever that is, it wants to come through you. So intuition is allowing that to come through us.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. I love it. I love it. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that today. So tell us what you're doing with real estate and your communities and everything. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, thank you. So right now in real estate, what I'm focusing on is helping others invest in a beautiful life. So what that looks like is either investing for passive income or for your own sanctuary, right? So there's that layer of it. There's the layer that I'm currently evaluating different retreat centers. The vision is to own multiple retreat centers around the world that are profitable, because the whole vision is, I've been investing in real estate for years. It's been such a tool for me to be able to live the life of my dreams. And I want to be able to also shift that now into creating both income and impact for my investors, for myself. And then the third layer is coaching and mentoring around investing in a beautiful life. And so to me, investing in a beautiful life has 4 pillars: health, wealth, love, and freedom. And I could go for hours on each one of these, because this is literally what I've dedicated my life to, what I've been a full-time student of for 7 years. And so I'm so excited to share that with the world. I've got a group mentorship program that's opening up, and then some private coaching available as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We're going to put all the links down below so you have access to Frances. So check her out on social media. And like I said earlier, please give a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We really are growing and we're getting some amazing speakers and women. I just love having Frances here today. You've been such a blessing to me in my life, and I just love sharing time with you. And so definitely do that, everyone. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll respond, and just reach out. And we'll be talking about the Jill Collins Connections community coming up really soon too for women. So exciting about that. So everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, Frances, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And everyone, thank you again for being here, and stay connected. Take care.